My name is Steve. Welcome to my shop. And this is part 4 of my Stuart S50 steam engine rebuild repair. I am using a new lighting system that my son and daughter-in-law gave me for Christmas, and I'm hoping that it's going to improve some of the shots around the machines. I'm pretty happy with the raw footage that I'm seeing so far. Also, in this video there are several clips where I did no narration. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with them yet. When I edit this video, I may narrate over top. I'm not sure. We'll see whether they are just self-explanatory or whether they need some help. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get started. I'm making gaskets for the 2 cylinder heads. I'm using a piece of brass tubing that I have that's 5/8 of an inch in diameter, which is the diameter of the hole that I need. And I took a deburring tool and ran it around the inside diameter of it to make a sharp edge, so it's cutting out the disc. It came out pretty good. So now I'm fitting it on the cylinder head, and I'll cut the outside diameter with a pair of scissors. Got the gasket cut out. Now I'm just going to use a small drill mounted in a pin vise to mark the holes. Okay, so I've got it marked. Now I'm going to go around with my hole punch and okay. The holes all line up. It'll be ready to put back together. I forgot to press the record button, so I'm going to kind of do this over again. What I'm doing is honing the cylinder with a small 2-stone brake cylinder hone. And I'm using CRC 556 as a lubricant. It's a product similar to WD-40, but I like it better. It's got more lubrication in it. I'm going to increase my speed, put a little bit more juice on it. Okay, I'm going to bring you in a little closer and show you the finish. Pretty happy with the finish on it. This is the piston. Beautiful. Fits real well. I didn't really remove any material, I just polished it up. So the cylinder just needs to be cleaned up now and be ready to reinstall. Off camera, I cut out the cladding from a piece of nice brass stock. I started out by creating it on a piece of cardstock, and I made a template, and then I transferred all of those sizes over to the piece of brass. So what I'm doing now is drilling the cylinder block and tapping the holes for 256 thread, because that's what I've got, to hold the cladding onto the cylinder block. Once I got the 2 holes drilled and tapped, I installed the cladding onto the cylinder block, those first 2 holes, and then I'm able to fit it on around the block and center punch the other 2 holes to drill them on the opposite side. Once I had center punched the location of these two holes, off camera I took it over to the drill press. I drilled them and then I tapped them to make the final installation of the cladding. This is the final fitting and installation of the cladding on the cylinder. I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. And in later shots you'll see it after the bluing has been removed. And it really is pretty sharp. I originally thought maybe I'd paint it, but I really like the brass finish, so I may just polish it up a little bit and leave it with the brass. I had forgotten to push the record button when I did the initial cleanup on the flywheel. I mounted it on a piece of stock to use as an arbor, and I'm using the red Scotch-Brite with some WD-40 on it to clean the light surface rust off of it. It turned out pretty good. Pretty happy with the finish. The next piece that I've got to repair, actually replace, is the crosshead. And from this side it looks fine, but there were two holes drilled in from that side, and one of them very crooked, and you probably can't see it, but it actually has created a slot on the inside. There it is there. Let's see if I can, right there. There's a slot in there. So I'm going to replace this. The first thing that I did, I've got a piece of brass to make it out of. It looks like the correct size. It's 3/4 by half, it looks like. And so I've scribed it up according to the diagram. And I'm going to take it over into the milling machine and cut it to shape. I'm using a 3/16 cutter to mill the 3/16 slot. I've got it centered on the piece. Slot is going to be 5/16 deep, and I have it marked off. That's it. That's as far as we go. Okay, my 3/16 is right on the money. And this is the piece that will go in there, so that fits just fine. So let's set up for the next cut. I'm going to do to guarantee that they're both exactly the same height, I'm going to move down and cut this side. I'm going to go down to full depth, and then I'll come back over, not change my Z axis at all, and make the finished cut on that end. So then those two will be absolutely perfect. That's my final depth cut. Now I will move it back to the other side. I zeroed it out, so I'll go back to 0. And back to 0. And now I'll cut through here without changing the Z. And so they'll be absolutely the same. Perfect. And what I found is that this material is just a little bit thicker than it calls for calls for 930 seconds total. It measures 3/8. So I've got to take 330 seconds off the total thickness. So I'll touch down on the top and mill 330 seconds off of that, and I'll do that off camera. This boss here still needs to be machined, and that's actually round when you look at the end view. That's round, but what I'm going to do is put it in the mill, and I'm going to cut it back and take the majority of the material off and just leave a square there that I can put in the lathe in the forejaw and turn that round. But I'm not sure exactly what the height of that's going to be yet, because there have been changes made on this engine and I cannot go by the drawing for the center line of that hole. So once I get it roughed out, we'll put it together and determine exactly where the center line of that hole is going to be as far as the height is concerned. Okay, there it is, all roughed out. I'm going to go back over to the bench, and off camera I'm going to reassemble the piece. I've got to put the cylinder on the frame, on the base, and then we've got to check to see what the center line. Okay, off camera I assembled, put the cylinder back on the base, and I've got the piston and rod in there, and I blued up the end of the crosshead, and now what I'm going to do is kind of slide this back and forth and see. Yeah, I'm making a mark on here. You can see it, that marks the height, the center height of the piston rod. So now I can center punch that, and we'll go put it in the four-jaw chuck, and turn this piece round, drill it, and tap it. Okay, I've got the piece in the forejaw and I got it zeroed in. I got it down to within a 1/1000. I'm pretty happy with that. So now I will cut the boss round, and then I will drill and tap the hole for the piston rod. Okay, I'm satisfied with that. Now I'll drill it and tap it. Fortunately, I checked the thread before I drilled and tapped, because the shaft that's supposed to be 7 BA is actually a 5 BA. Well, that looks right. It fits. And the last operation will be to cross drill it for the connecting rod. I'm going to save that for the next part of this video. So that's going to wrap up part 4 of the Stuart S50 steam engine rebuild repair. See you in the next video.